My name is Derek Holloway, and I found out my wife was fighting me for full custody of our 2 kids while her own phone quietly built the case that would end her marriage instead of mine. I am 36 years old, a regional sales manager for an industrial equipment company based in Columbus, Ohio, and until 8 months ago I believed my life was ordinary in the best possible way. A wife named Rachel, a boy named Tyler who was 7, a girl named Emma who was 5, a house in Westerville with a swing set in the backyard. Then Rachel served me with papers claiming I was an absent, unfit father because of my travel schedule, and asked the court to grant her sole custody. What she did not expect was that I would go looking for proof to defend myself, and instead find proof that would destroy her. I had been with Rachel for 11 years, married for 8. We met at Ohio State. She was studying communications, I was finishing a business degree, and we fell into the kind of easy love that felt permanent because neither of us questioned it. After graduation I took a job with a manufacturer that sold conveyor systems to warehouses across the Midwest, and within a few years I was promoted into a regional role requiring travel 3 or 4 days a week, sometimes to Indiana, sometimes Michigan, occasionally as far as Missouri. Rachel stayed home with the kids at first, then took a part-time job at a marketing firm downtown once Emma started kindergarten. On paper we looked like a normal, busy American family, juggling soccer practice and grocery runs, the kind of life you see in every suburb in every state. The travel had always been part of our marriage, and for years Rachel never complained about it. She used to text me pictures of the kids at dinner, and I would call every night around 8 to say goodnight to Tyler and Emma before bed. But somewhere around a year and a half ago, things started to shift. She stopped answering my calls some nights, claiming she was busy, or her phone had died, or she had fallen asleep early. I did not think much of it because Rachel had always been a private person who did not like being tracked, and I respected that. Then the phone habits changed more directly. She used to leave her phone on the kitchen counter face up, no lock screen worries because we never had reason to hide anything. Around last spring she started carrying it into the bathroom, sleeping with it under her pillow instead of the nightstand. Once I picked it up just to check the weather and she practically lunged across the bed to take it, laughing it off, but her eyes did not match her laugh. Around the same time she started picking up extra hours at work, telling me she had a big client project that required her to stay late 3 nights a week. I believed her because why would I not? I was gone half the week myself, driving to distributor meetings in Fort Wayne or Grand Rapids, staying in the same chain hotels I had used for years. When I was home I tried to make up for lost time, taking the kids to the park, cooking dinner so Rachel could relax, but she seemed distant even in the same room, scrolling through her phone at dinner, answering my questions half a beat too late like her mind was somewhere else entirely. The custody papers arrived on a Tuesday in March, delivered by a process server who caught me in the parking lot of my own office in front of 2 colleagues. The petition claimed my job made me an unfit primary caregiver, that my travel schedule left the children without stability, and that Rachel wanted full physical custody with limited supervised visitation for me. I stood there in the cold with the papers shaking in my hand, reading the word unfit over and over, thinking about every soccer game I had rearranged flights to attend, every bedtime story read over video call from a hotel room in Toledo. I hired a lawyer named Susan Whitfield, a sharp woman in her 50s who had handled dozens of custody disputes in Franklin County, and she told me something that changed everything. She said the court would want a full picture of both parents, not just my travel schedule but Rachel's actual involvement and stability too. She encouraged me to document my own routines, but also said, almost as an afterthought, that sometimes the parent pushing hardest for sole custody is trying to control the narrative before something else comes out. I did not think anything would come out. I genuinely believed Rachel wanted full custody because she resented my travel, because she thought the kids needed one steady home base. But 2 weeks after the papers were served, I went to pick up Tyler and Emma for my scheduled weekend, and Tyler, who was 8 by then, said something offhand while buckling his seat belt. He said he liked staying at Mr. Brad's house because Brad had a trampoline in the backyard. I asked who Brad was, trying to keep my voice casual, and Tyler said he was Mommy's friend from work, and that they stayed there sometimes when Mommy said it was a sleepover. I did not confront Rachel that day. I drove home and sat in my driveway for 20 minutes, running through every late night, every missed call, every time she had claimed to be at the office. When I dropped the kids back off on Sunday evening, I asked Rachel casually whether the kids had fun that week, and she said yes, they stayed with her mother most nights while she caught up on work. That was a lie, and I knew it was a lie the second she said it, because Tyler had already told me the truth without knowing it mattered. I did something I am not proud of, but something my lawyer later told me was completely legal since it was a shared family laptop that Rachel and I had always used interchangeably for bills and photos. I opened it one evening after the kids were asleep and found she had left her email logged in, connected to a cloud backup for her phone messages. I was not trying to spy at first, I was looking for our joint tax documents for Susan. But sitting right there in the inbox were months of message threads backed up automatically, conversations with the contact saved as Brad W. The messages went back 14 months. Photos of Rachel and a man I did not recognize at a lake house, a restaurant downtown, a bedroom that was not our bedroom. Messages about picking the kids up early from daycare so they would already be at his house before our nightly video chat, so Tyler and Emma would say goodnight to me from what I believed was our living room, when they were actually 30 minutes away in another man's house. Rachel told Brad that once the divorce was final and she had full custody, they would not have to hide anymore, that my travel schedule made it easy since I would never prove where the kids actually slept. I sat at that kitchen table until 3 in the morning, feeling something in my chest cave in and then harden into something colder and more useful. The next morning I called Susan and told her everything. She was quiet for a moment, then said, "Derek, this changes the entire case, send me everything you found right now, and do not confront her yet." I listened, which was the hardest thing I have ever done, because every instinct wanted me to walk into that marketing firm and ask Rachel how she could accuse me of being unfit while building a second life behind my back. Instead I sat on it for 9 days while Susan built our response, attaching printed message threads, photo metadata showing dates and locations, and a private investigator's report confirming the children had stayed overnight at Brad Whitmore's address at least 11 times in the past 4 months, all while Rachel's petition claimed I was the unstable, absent parent. The confrontation happened in Susan's conference room. During a mediation session, Rachel's attorney had requested to negotiate custody terms before trial. Rachel walked in expecting to discuss my travel schedule. Instead, Susan slid the folder across the table and said, "Before we discuss Derek's fitness as a father, I think we need to discuss where the children have actually been sleeping for the past year." Rachel's face went white. Her attorney flipped through the pages, and I watched the color drain out of both of their expressions at the same time. Rachel tried to explain, said it was not what it looked like, said Brad was just a friend who had been helping her through a hard time, but the messages spoke for themselves, months of plans, admissions, even a message where she wrote that keeping me traveling and distracted made it easier to build a life with Brad without me noticing. I looked at her across that table and said, You tried to take my kids away from me by pretending I was the unreliable one, while you were sneaking them into another man's house and lying to their faces about it, and I need you to understand that I will never trust you with their safety again without oversight. The fallout was brutal. My parents were furious on my behalf, but Rachel's mother, who had unknowingly covered for her more than once, was devastated and stopped speaking to her for weeks. Some mutual friends cut Rachel off once the details came out, while others tried to stay neutral and ended up losing both of us in the process. At work I took 2 personal days just to hold myself together, and my manager, a decent man named Carl, quietly rearranged my travel schedule for the next few months without me even asking, giving me more weekends home than I had ever had. The custody case flipped entirely. With the documented instability, the repeated lies, and the pattern of secrecy involving the children, the judge granted me primary physical custody, with Rachel receiving supervised visitation until she could demonstrate consistent stability, something her own attorney did not fight very hard against once the evidence was laid out. I did not go looking for revenge in the traditional sense. I did not post anything online. I did